Hello everybody, my name is Ruth. I just left Venus and I'm here to talk to you today about finding healing through self-pleasure and how I found God through the orgasm. Let me start this transmission with a quote that my friend said. And she said, "Who needs a church when you have a body?" And church is where this story begins. The church parking lot in particular. I was around like 15, 16. So context, I grew up very Catholic. We went to church, went to mass every Sunday, all the holidays. I went to Catholic school, Catholic education when I didn't go to Catholic school. So yeah, we're very devout Catholics. And this story starts on a typical Sunday morning in the parking lot of the church. I was with my parents and I was preparing to leave the car when my dad saw my dress. Now my dress was a white, I don't even know what the material was, doesn't matter, but it was white and I felt so cute in it. I think I got at Urban Outfitters. It was a little bit above the knee, but I didn't even think it was that short. And when my dad saw it finally, I guess he didn't see it when I went into the car. He saw it and he was appalled and he said, "I look like a slut." And I was just so hurt because I was in high school. I was like the most innocent person, and yet, now okay, let's start by saying, yes, slut. I was called a slut by my father because of what I was wearing, and we can go into the implications about all of that, but I only bring up this story just to set the scene for how I looked at sexuality, showing myself off to the world, being seen by the world in all my full glory. And the best way that I can describe that feeling of being called a slut by my father when I was a teenager is the feeling of being a flower crushed. So my father, somebody that I loved and I looked up to, crushed that flower that wanted to bloom with like just one word. And this wasn't an isolated incident. Like, he's made comments about my clothing choices over the years. Of course, it stopped as I've grown older and left the house, but that feeling really stuck with me, understandably. And moving on to how this ties in with sexuality. So I will say, I think I discovered self-pleasure for myself. Like, I experienced my first orgasm like the night before my 17th birthday, by myself, of course. And I was like, to be honest, I was a little scared of it. I was like, what is this feeling? Like, it feels so good, but it feels so wrong. And of course, like, it was a sin. Like, masturbation is considered a mortal sin in Catholicism. So like throughout that year, like senior year, I would do it like a few times, but feel immensely guilty afterwards. And not only because I was doing something taboo, but also because I knew that I would have to confess it to the priest eventually. And like, confession for Catholics, like, you gotta list out all your sins, and that's so fucking embarrassing. Like, I had to be like, oh, I masturbated X amount of times. So in order to avoid that embarrassment, like, I just would rather not do it. But as we all know, like, that feels so good to like just stop doing. So yeah, that was my first experience, or that was my early experience with solo sex and self-pleasure. I wouldn't even call it self-pleasure at the time because it was always associated with guilt. So just keep that in mind. I always associated orgasms with guilt. There's so much to unpack So let's unpack it. So later, as I got into my 20s, I began to have sex with men. And this is very interesting how certain partners made me feel deficient in a way because I did not climax. Yeah, there's more than one partner that made me feel like there's something like, oh, like I did my part, like there's something wrong with you if you didn't come. Like it was that kind of attitude that made me feel like there was something wrong with me, and like I know now that there is nothing wrong with me, and that kind of cavalier attitude was just a projection of that partner's wound that needed healing. I see that now, and I don't begrudge any of them for it. Of course, I internalized it. I was like, why can't I come with these partners? But I was able to perfectly come by myself multiple times. Okay, something really shifted once I started to explore sex with myself, and that is how I discovered my spirituality again after so many years of losing my faith. Like I stopped going to church because church didn't really resonate with me anymore. So I was just kind of floating and lost and did not have a real solid ground of faith and spirituality without religion, the religion that I grew up with. So during my time of celibacy is when I really got to explore what sex meant to me and discover the power of the orgasm without anybody else. And what I learned, and what, if anything you take away from me today, is that nobody can give you an orgasm. Like, an orgasm is something that lives within you. And when you are having intercourse with a partners, they're not giving you something that doesn't already exist within you. They're helping bring out that orgasm. And I love thinking of that orgasm, like that really immense, powerful life force, as a flower blooming. Now, remember what I said about how I felt like what my dad said to me, when he called me a slut, I felt like a flower crushed. But the orgasm, the way that I love to describe it, is a flower blooming again. It's blooming. And it's a really beautiful image, and it's kind of full circle. But I made the link during my own solo sex adventures that the only way that I orgasm is when, or like, the moment of climax of release only comes when my inner child feels safe to play. And this is something that's a little bit weird to hear and to even for me to say, but that's literally what I feel. Like there's something interlinked between the inner child and sexuality, because sex is in all of us. We're all created by sex. Okay, no, wait, not all of us. Not all of us, but most of us were created by the act of sexual intercourse. And the Big Bang, if you want to go way back, was this huge explosion of sexual energy. That was the original orgasm, the ultimate climax. And everything that you see here and now that surrounds us is a result of that orgasm, the ultimate orgasm of life. And as above, so below, right? We're all a microcosm of the macrocosm. The universe lives within us, and so too does the orgasm, the Big Bang. So every time we climax, we experience a little bit of the Big Bang is what I love to think of. Something that I learned, something that I know to be true with my whole entire heart is that pleasure is a channel to the divine. It's the ultimate hyperspace tunnel that connects you to God, to intelligent infinity, to all that is. And it is just so sad that so many religions, society have endeavored to suppress that power and make us feel guilty or a sense of shame for wanting to experience that. Like, we were taught, at least in Catholicism, that the priest had to be the intercessor, or like the go-between between you and God, especially in the context of confession. Like, God wouldn't forgive your sins unless you went through a priest. Like, you couldn't dial God directly and ask to be forgiven. Like, you have to go to somebody else. But I don't believe in that anymore. It's like, it goes back to that quote, who needs a church when you have a body? Like, everything that we can imagine that we want, that we seek, already is within us. And through my own self-pleasure practice, I have found time and time again that so much power lies within me. Like, I have the power to give myself mind-blowing orgasms by myself. Like, that is just like so amazing. And when I get to that state, I really do feel like I describe it as taking a peek into a higher dimension and kind of looking around, because my mind is so clear when you get up there. Like, everything is just so clear and you're able to really receive messages. So during that split second or seconds, depending on how long you experience that moment for, but that's when you really experience timelessness and eternity. Oh my God. Anyway, I'm getting flustered. But what I'm trying to get at is that life can be a constant orgasm if you let it. Things are meant to be pleasurable, and it goes beyond, like, sex is like a weather vane or antenna, we could say, like, what you find arousing, like what kind of people that you're attracted to really clues you into what your soul wants you to learn. Like, what arouses you? What are your kinks? Yeah, what are your kinks? What is something that's taboo that, like, really turns you on? Because I really see that self-pleasure is the ultimate form of alchemy, in the sense that pain and pleasure become one and the same. Like, a sensation that is initially very painful becomes pleasurable, and vice versa. I see it as like a circle. You don't know where one begins and one ends. That's the lessons that I have learned from my self-pleasure journey, and I have healed tremendously because I have come to see sexuality as something beautiful and not something to be suppressed. And it's taking a lot of time to deprogram myself from the harmful beliefs that religion has ingrained in me. It just makes me sad because this is the most direct channel that we have to God. Sex is an immensely healing tool. Like, in ancient times, they had temples and festivals dedicated to the healing power of sex. Like, especially women, the vagina, the womb was healing. Like, men wanted to be healed by the feminine through sex, to access God through sex. So how powerful and how beautiful is that? And how sad and how shameful is our attempt to extinguish that flame, so to speak. And that's what I'm here to help spread the message on to help evangelize the power of the orgasm. Life can be a constant orgasm if you let it. I'm so sure of that. Pleasure is not something to be suppressed or to be shamed for, as long as you're not hurting anybody without consent. And yeah, I hope that you learned something. I hope that I was able to help you think of things in a different way. Also, thank you so much for holding space for me in my journey, in my story, and my pain. But it's only through pain that we're able to alchemize and transmute into pleasure and joy. And that's really what I owe self-pleasure to, my relationship to my sexuality and to my orgasm. And the orgasm in me recognizes the orgasm in you. So thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.